Welcome back to the I Love CVille show. This is show number 2 on a Friday. So grateful for Lloyd Snook to join us. He just announced that he's running for Charlottesville City Council. If you'd like to truly get a feel for Lloyd Snook and who he is, please check the video on our Facebook page. We will package it nicely as well for you on ilovecville.com. A pillar of our community is moments away. His name is Mark Lorenzoni, the co-owner of Ragged Mountain Running Shop. We will get to him in a matter of moments. Before we do, let's thank the fantastic sponsors of this program, Michael Guthrie and Roy Wheeler Realty Company. These folks are doing it right. Michael Guthrie and his team at Roy Wheeler, a good man, a good company, and a good team to trust with a very challenging process. We also would like to thank Sean and Roxanne Simmons. I don't know if you guys have known this, but for close to 30 years, Greenberry's coffee company has built a global business, and they started right here in Charlottesville. Sean and Roxanne used a beat-up Honda Civic to deliver their coffee all over town. Now they have locations in Japan, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. They're about to open in Portland. They have Washington, D.C. And guys, it started right here in Charlottesville. It's the best of Charlottesville and the stories we like to talk about. I also want to give some big-time props to Dr. Scott Wagner of Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine. He is changing people's lives. I've seen it firsthand. Who's got your back? Scott Wagner Chiropractic and Sports Medicine have your back. Judah, on that note, my friend, the two-shot, and we welcome a man who needs no introduction. His name, Mark Lorenzoni, co-owner, Ragged Mountain Running Shop. Mark, I'm grateful for your time. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us on the program.
Thanks for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure. It makes me nostalgic of our times of running together on a weekly basis on Sports Talk Radio. You're a man that truly connects with people in the community. Let's start open-ended. Ragged Mountain Running Shop. How many years we at now?
Coming up in a few weeks, it'll be 37.
Cynthia and I. 37 years. Yep. When you and Cynthia launched it, you guys were kids.
Oh my gosh, yeah. We have a photograph actually in the shop of us a few weeks after we opened, and people say it looks like our children. You know, they now help us run the business. But yeah, very nervously opened the doors. You know, high interest rates, and this was a kind of unique concept, and it wasn't going to make it. We believed it, but everybody said, you know, no way. No way.
What we try to do on the show is we're entrepreneurs in 2019 because of the ubiquitous nature of shows like Shark Tank. We've become like rock stars. And someone who's about, you said 37 years?
37.
37 years of success is astonishing and should be celebrating, considering most small business, 80% of small businesses fail in their first 3 years. I would love, and the show is yours, sir, I would love if you put the history, the evolution. Mark and Cynthia, what age were you? And why did you start this business in the first place?
I was 27, and Cynthia was 25. And it was, like I said, we were nervous, but it's the classic cliche thing, nothing to lose. We believed in what we were doing it. And this starts to sound a little kind of arrogant, but we were very much doing it because we had this passion for the sport and the belief that exercise is something good for you. And there wasn't anything else in town that was being offered at that level. And we were prudent when we started, and we started conservatively, but it really wasn't about this was going to make us a living the rest of our life. We just felt like it was something we felt like there was a need for it. And there were only a couple of foot races in town at the time, and no training programs, and we just there wasn't any marketing approach. It was just take our passion and our hobby and translate it into a business. And we used to joke that we'd have we had 2 little seats in the store, and if those seats were filled at the same time, we were having a banner day. And it just grew from there. We grew conservatively, grew with our clientele, so to speak. And if people were saying, "Why don't you have this in? Why don't you try that? We're looking for this." And interesting enough, it's over the years it's evolved. We've stayed on the same street. We really believed in that. We very much believe in familiarity, even though we've grown and changed. We like the concept that Jerry Miller if he moved away, can come back, and we're still there on the street, and we have a lot of that. We're alumni and folks that have moved from the area back shopping with us. But we grew the sport as we grew the business, and it wasn't a methodical thought of, well, if we have events and races and training programs, then we'll sell more shoes. It was just a natural extension. And the fun part is that we've gotten very, very incorporated in the community as neighbors. And so through sitting on boards and putting on events, and it's all been volunteer. That's been a fun part of the balance. I feel very strongly about balance, that notion of give and take. It's part of our mantra. So we take, people buy shoes, we take your money. And then how can we figure out ways to give back and not, again, use it as a marketing stance, but just really it's put the head on the pillow at night to sleep well, to feel good about our place in the community as a neighbor.
We call it a social entrepreneur or a conscious capitalist. And I think you define both. Your family defines both. I would like to kind of tell the history, and where I'm going with this is 37 years ago, what was like the running community even like in Charlottesville? And the reason I ask this question is, and you're a humble man, so I'm going to say this. Your family has taken the running community to exponential heights. That is safe to say. Ragged Mountain Running Shop has done that. When you launched 37 years ago, what was that community like?
It was a relatively small running community, even though I guess it was getting to be a relatively popular sport around the country. There was a boom of sorts going on, but it was a small community, 3 races a year, not a ton of activity outside of those few races. Charlottesville Track Club, which it's like my second family, so to speak. We've been very intimately involved with them. They didn't have a single training program at the time, and now, good grief, Jerry, we've run thousands of people through those training programs over the years, where we get them from sedentary behavior into we call it a lifetime of exercise, and whether it's walking or running. So it was tough in so many ways, and one of the ways it was really tough was the community was not really psyched about the notion of having foot races where you would, heavens to Betsy, close a street, and where the police were like, what, you want us to stop cars at an intersection? The woman's 4-miler. My gosh, that was such a long journey of trying to find the right support in the community, because that was 1983 when we started that notion of putting on an all-women's race. And I can remember going to the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors. My knees were knocking together as I was standing behind the podium talking to folks like Jerry Fisher and Tim Lindstrom, the powers that be at the time. But people slowly but surely believed in us. The city did. And there was always this back then, there was always this it was a form of a threat, but the powers would say, don't mess it up, or it isn't going to happen again. And so I felt like we had to do it right if we were going to have some kind of legacy with this, have some legs, so to speak, to it. So women's 4-miler started at 300. It's now 3,000. Men's, the Charlottesville 10-miler was at about 300. It's now almost 3,000. So, yeah, and then every single event, Jerry, we discovered early on that if we put on these races, we could double dip in the sense of giving back. Give someone a venue to exercise in, a fun setting to be competitive, but also raise money. And those races, now there's 80 races a year in the community. They raise millions and millions of dollars. The races that Cynthia and I are involved in raise close to $1 million every year. Now, we get lots of help. We don't do it alone, but that really feels good. And we turn it all back within the community. We don't get involved with events that are for national organizations. It's all keeping it local. It's
a beautiful thing. A lot of people on the cast. Let's thank them for joining us here. Andre Xavier, Sean Sweeney, Aaron Marks, Michael Allenby, Deborah Morgan, J.B. Bartley, Tim Hegmeyer.
Yes.
Tim says, Mark Lorenzoni is a living legend. Tyler Berry, Ray Cadell, Michelle Warwick, Michael Payne, Eric Burke, Becky Calvert, Lauren Linsky, Cody Kaysen, David Karen, Jason Halloran. A lot of people watching us here. Talk to us about the dynamics of launching the business as youth, people in their 20s. How do you go about getting a loan back then? Interest rates probably astronomical back then. Yeah. Did banks even take you seriously back then?
Yeah, no, it was tough. But it's cliche, start small and start with passion and do it for the right reasons. I know that sounds like, why would you do it for the wrong reasons? But don't look for a fad, don't look for a trend. Say, do I really believe in this trend or fad? And we really, both of us were runners, Cynthia, champion runner. We really believed in the activity. And of course, that activity's evolved. Jerry, we changed the name of the store this year from Ragged Mountain Running Shop to Ragged Mountain Running and Walking, because we have 40% of our customers are walkers. Why? A lot of them have aged like Cynthia and I have. We do a lot of walking ourselves now. But getting that loan, oh my gosh, it was tough. And, you know, we were young, so we were just basically almost out of college. So setting up, you know, credit and having people believe in us was really, it was tough. So, but I think just starting small, starting for the right reasons. And my dad always used to say, treat everyone like you want them to come back. Don't treat them as a commodity, as someone in the store. What's the most I can get out of them? Treat them as a person that you want them to come back. And I think if you have that mantra, it goes beyond the whole golden rule and treat others how you would want to be treated, which is, you know, a big part of our thought process, is treat them like you want. Okay, so if I want you to come back, am I going to sell you the most expensive shoe I have in the store? Am I going to sell you an insert when you don't really need it? Am I going to, you know, that's fast, quick, but does it endure? And there are so often people come in and they'll say, I need new shoes and they need new inserts. I'll look at the insert and say, no, you don't need a new insert. No, come on, really? I want to buy a new insert today. Well, you don't need it. So I think that isn't a ploy. That's how I would want to be treated.
Great answer right there. That's a sizzle reel clip waiting to happen, Judah. Let's turn that into a highlight clip. Jason Krigler, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. Mark Walbin, Chris Turner, Rashad Jones, thank you for joining us on the broadcast. The brand, when you initially started out, did you have, and I love the entrepreneurial side, did you have some moments where you're like, I don't think we're going to make it? Any of those scary moments? Because 10 years ago when I launched my business, I launched it out of my condo. 6 months in, I put 30 grand, my entire life savings into the business. 6 months in, Mark, I was terrified. I was going to the Panda Garden Buffet over by Lambeth Field, no money, bringing Ziploc bags in, and when they weren't looking, was going to the buffet and filling Ziploc bags in, and that was my food for 3 days. Not just my food, my dog's food.
Wow.
That's how tight money was. And then I just had, like I mentioned, Andy McClure came in, the business started taking off. I did right by one client, he told somebody else. Did you have any moments where you were terrified?
Oh my gosh, yeah. So it's a split. There's a yin and yang to this. Cynthia and I deeply believed that we were doing the right thing, and this was something we really wanted to do, and we were doing it the right way. And we knew we had to start small. We not only been told that by people, but we weren't naive. We were not so naive that we thought the doors were going to be pushed over every morning with people coming through, you know, spluing into the store. But oh my gosh, there were plenty of times. The first year and the second year, but it went from, you know, 3 shoes a day. Can you imagine a pair of shoes every 3 hours is what we were selling that first year. And, you know, it's upwards of 85, 90 shoes a day. You know, that took forever. And I'm not bragging about it as much as we knew in our heart that it was going to take time. It's a classic thing. You know, you want to get on a weight loss program? Go on a crash diet. You'll probably gain that weight back pretty quickly. You want to really keep it off? It takes a long time to take a pound a week off, a pound every 3 weeks off. And it was the same way with Ragged Mountain. But, oh, my gosh, there were moments where we were scared. But again, my father was, even though he was not a businessman, he was a cost engineer for an oil company, for Esso, which of course became Exxon. And he would always throw out these little quips about, don't get too far out ahead of you, you know, don't get don't get greedy, don't, you know, build slowly. Those were just good mantras, and I think that helped us keep going. So we never actually got in big trouble. It was slow at first. So,
my wife is the director of operations here. She's watching now. She's at home with our son, and while at home with our son, she's doing social media posting. She's doing accounts payable and receivable. She's a superwoman. We would not be here without her. Yeah. I'm curious of the dynamic in the beginning between you and Cynthia. Put that in perspective.
Yeah, Cynthia and I again, cliche, we were partners from the get-go in our marriage, and because it went beyond the normal kind of marriage, husband-wife, I was her coach. And Cynthia was a great marathoner in her day, and not because of me as the coach, but because she was doggone talented and a really hard worker. And we parlayed that partnership into the business, and that was give and take, open communication, and here it goes again, another cliche, but hard work. If you open the doors of your small business, and a couple of things. If you're not willing to spend time outside the business, working on the business, out in the community, doing events, working at home at night, and if you're not willing to deal with the ups and downs of it, and you're probably not going to make it. You're not going to make you have to go in eyes wide open and be willing to work hard. And Cynthia was such a hard trainer in her athletics, and we felt the same way about the business. We were going to work really hard at it. If it failed, it wasn't going to be because we weren't working hard, and we're still working hard today, we're constantly creating what we think are new ways to generate interest in this lifetime of this notion of having a lifetime of fitness. So, this whole we're living longer, obviously, in society, and people are exercising later in life. We want to be a part of that in people's lives in that partnership. But it's been fun, really fun with Cynthia. I wouldn't trade it for anything, absolutely. And now with Alec and Audrey helping, they've been intimately involved and ultimately will be the owners of the business somewhere down the road. That's been fun. And it's got its moments. We tease quite often. Someone will come in the office, Jerry, and we're having some kind of family squabble. Somebody ticked at someone about the way they talk to them, or somebody feels like they're working harder than someone else on that given day. And a friend will walk back there, and I said, "Welcome to the reality show," because we're, bickering back there. But I think people also like that when they see the passion of a family fighting to make the business better. Make the business better. We started this winter mileage club. I had this idea. It's not terribly unique, and I thought, get people outside, get them exercising in the winter. So we'll reward you. You do 100 miles from December 21st to March 21st. Blah blah blah. You do 200, 300, 400, 500. You do it all outdoors. You get a special shirt. Oh my gosh! I mean, it was overwhelming, the response. I thought we'd get 50 people signed up, and it's been fun. And that was something new. We just started getting people out. Beautiful community. I'm not saying don't exercise indoors, but it's a way to get people keep them interested in the wintertime.
I love that answer right there. Judah, crop that one shot a little tighter for me on Mark. Thank you very much, sir. The location, Elliowood Avenue. Why Elliowood? Why in the UVA bubble? I mean, put that in perspective.
Oh, Jerry, if I had a nickel, the classic line, for every time somebody said, "I hate coming down here, I hate the corner, I hate the students, I hate the university, I hate being anywhere in this crowd," I would be probably just as wealthy as I am with having been there. But it's been special. That was a set thing in our head. We wanted to be near the university, not to capture student business, not to capture the professor's business, but because we love the environment. And sure, it's a little inconvenient, but I'll argue this over and over again. You name a perfect location in Charlottesville, because if it's 29 North, then someone from 29 South says, "Gee, that's a far way." If it's out west of town, then somebody east of town.
If it's downtown, people complain about the parking.
So we use this line: we're hard to get to, but harder not to come back to. So once you're there, you feel like, I'm coming back here, and people it's not a business where people need to come in every day, obviously. So they come in once or twice a year. That's our average customer. So average time that they come in. But again, it makes us feel young. We have student employees. They enrich my life. The professors that come in enrich my life. The doctors and nurses and all of the people that have anything to do with the university, they just make the day that much more fun. And I feel like we're that much more engaged in the core of this community, like you are downtown here. And it's no slight to anywhere else, but it's just not I wanted to be close to not just the action, but the vibrancy of being a part of, when I was at Michigan State, Cynthia and I, we had a corner. It was called Grand River. I always thought that was the coolest place. And I never thought I'd own a business, but that was, I always felt that energy there, and the energy's still there. Sadly, there's only 5 or 6 of us left retail-wise.
Who are they?
We've got Mincer's, of course, and you've got Finch, and you've got the Heartwood Books. And we were going through this the other day. We were talking about this. There's just a couple of businesses, really a handful of businesses. I'm sure I'm forgetting someone. This is terrible, but that actually walk out the door with a bag in your hand that has goods in it that isn't food and drink. And of course, that's great. We've got lots of food and drink. I just wish there was a little more retail. We've lost retail over the years. For either the internet has affected people, or people have listened to that complaint about get away from the corner and have gone. I always think you come down to the corner, it's history. it's the core of the corner is the original shopping district. Before even the downtown mall, there was shops on the corner because that's where the university was. I like being a part of that history. And then I always tell people, come on down and take your kids for a walk down the lawn. Better yet, grab lunch at Bodo's, get the sandwiches, and go eat it in one of the pavilion gardens. The best kept secret in Charlottesville. They're peaceful, quiet, historic, and you never know, you might run into Jim Ryan, who lives on the lawn right now, the president, who would say, hey, how you doing? And now they're building the slave memorial, memorial, I guess it's called Mel, Memorial for Enslaved Labor. That's going to be fantastic. All the more reason for people to come visit. So I've loved it, and I've loved the kids' lives we've been a part of, Jerry. We have 9 Ragged Mountain marriages. 9.
Really?
And a Ragged Mountain marriage is defined by 2 people meeting while working at Ragged Mountain, didn't know each other, and getting married. We have Ragged Mountain kids now, pure breed Ragged Mountain kids, 2 Ragged Mountain, folks getting together, and Ragged Mountain twins. But we stay in good touch with those kids, and you think after 37 years, my kids are now 50, 55 years old that started with us when they were, second years at UVA. So that's been another layer of fun. We have 3 generations of families now. Guy who used to shop in the store brings his daughter in who used to shop as a high schooler. Now she has a child, and she wants the child who's 10 years old to get a pair of good shoes. It's a blast.
Mark Lorenzoni, guys, our guest of Ragged Mountain Running and Walking Shop.
And walking.
M. Travis Wilborn, thank you for joining us on the show. Gilly Garf, thank you for joining us on the show. Heather Lehman Walker. Terry Thompson, thank you for joining us on the show as well. Jim Ryan. Love this guy.
Ryan.
I mean, what I love about him, and I'll throw it to you, but what I love about him is his sense of trying to be approachable, his sense of trying to be welcoming. He's doing these, if you haven't followed the news, he's inviting people to meet him in the morning for a run about grounds on Tuesday mornings. I love it. And I love it, and I think it's exactly what the university needs. Your thoughts on President Ryan?
Well, first of all, he's a personal friend and been for a long time, he and his wife, Katie, and their family. I've had the wonderful opportunity, like I do with a lot of folks. I coach a lot of folks, and Jim is one of my athletes, he and Katie. And when I was aware that Jim was at the top of the list, I could hardly contain myself. And the thing, Jerry, I kept saying, once the news got out, and there was a percentage of people who knew him because he used to live here, he was on the law faculty, and had been a soccer dad, coaching kids' soccer leagues and cycling, because he's very outdoorsy.
Is that how you met him?
I met him through my coaching. He joined our Boston Marathon group, and that's how I met him and again got to be very close with him. He's very fast, Jerry. He has a PR that's under 2 hours and 50 minutes, which I'll put in layman's terms is 6:25 a mile, which is pretty impressive. But when I found out that it was a go, that he had he was coming to Charlottesville, anybody I could grab, I'd say, you're not going to believe this person. And they said, well, I've heard this before. I said, no. He's just an exceptional person. He's a wonderful husband and father and mentor and friend, and he's brilliant. He's great at connecting dots. And he gets out of bed every day with a mantra that I share. I believe in this mantra. I feel the same way. And it isn't that Jim is like Mark or Mark's like Jim. It's just we happen to share the same mantra. Let's make this the best community we can possibly make it. And some of that's selfish because we live here. Why would we want to make our town worse? But a lot of it's just the spirit you feel. And Jim is doing that day in, day out. Look at his social media feed. Nothing ever negative. Right. And it's not glossed. He finds, and it's easy to find, you're doing it with this show, find positive stories and magnify them, celebrate them. And in doing that, he's subtly making friends. And in making friends, when he begins to make change, those friends will say, I'm on board with you, Jim.
They're supportive.
I'm on board. So we're going to have a living wage at the university? I'm on board. I'm ready to go because I believe in you. I believe in your leadership. He is the quintessential leader that, you would say, oh, perfect. I mean, my son always jokes that he always says, we're going to lose Jim to the presidency of the United States. It'll be Jim Ryan for president in 2024. It's a joke. But people feel that passionately about his ability to make people feel good about their relationship. And he's working right now very, very much, not only behind the scenes, but outwardly on this connection of bridging He had asked me this fall to direct his inauguration run, and we named it, we dubbed it, we came up with the name Community Bridges. And it literally, Jerry ran across bridges, Beta Bridge, the Drury Brown Bridge, as it connected the runners and walkers. We had 1,500 people. Awesome. For a first-time event. We raised $25,000. Where did we decide to give the money? To our local not-for-profits. It was a really tremendous event. But that event physically spoke volumes about Jim's dream and mission of we're coming, the university's coming, and we're coming in a good way to be your partner. And we want to roll up our sleeves with the community and figure out ways to resolve issues that have been out there. And it's going to take a while to get people to fully trust this man and his mission, but it's going to happen because, Jerry, you know this. If somebody, you'd say, oh, that person seems too good to be true because you have no idea of their past. They bring baggage, and it'll crash. Mm-hmm. 6 months into this guy, it's the opposite. There's a lot of depth in his heart and soul, and he really believes, and he's willing to work hard.
Mark Lorenzoni crushing it on the show. We'll thank Intrastate Pest and Service Companies for being a part of this program, a home's best friend, Intrastate Pest and Service Companies. You joke about Jim Ryan being so qualified and potentially running for the presidency. Obviously, that was a joke.
Oh, yes.
It was a joke.
Please don't cut that sound bite.
We would not do that.
I'll get a text from Jim tonight saying, whoa,
the reason
the Board of Visitors is really worked up about your comments.
Right. The reason I'm going with that is Chris Markham says on the broadcast, I'm waiting for Mark Lorenzoni to announce that he's running for city council. Of course, he's doing that tongue-in-cheek because he respects you. Peyton Alley, thank you for joining us. Roger Crawford and Casey Clausen, thank you for joining us. The university, such a key part of your business. What I found, my business is almost 11 years old. And what I found with I Love CVille is I knew that I had to get the brand and the message on grounds because I knew the people that matriculated just like me through the University of Virginia were the ones that get hooked and fall in love with CVille and either move back or magnify the best of the community. And that's what we've tried to do. You have done that in spades.
I remember some years ago, Jerry, it's interesting, the thought went through my head. I got asked to be on the chamber board, and I've had the pleasure of serving on a lot of community boards. It's been really, talk about enriching. And many of those boards have had no outwardly connection to running, which I like. Virginia Institute of Autism, Shelter for Help in Emergency. But one of the boards I got asked to be on was the Chamber of Commerce. That one was a little more of, you could see the connection. I'm a business owner, so you get on the chamber. And the first year, it was Jane Dittmar was running the chamber at the time, and she charged me, she said, you're going to be on the tourism subcommittee. I'm like, tourism? And she goes, yes, tourism. You know a lot about tourism. I said, I don't know anything about tourism. She goes, yes, you do, because those foot races you put on attract so many tourists to the community. You know in a subtle way. Of course, she was being nice, but it has been fun with this notion that people feel, creating an experience that people feel like they want to come back to. How many people retire here? Think about it, that went to school here, that maybe lived here when they're young and their job took them elsewhere through their journey of life.
Or never left.
Or never left. And I like being a part of, and it's a small, tiny part, and Cynthia and I feel this way pretty strongly, of people feeling like this is an inviting, warm, and welcoming community. In any way we can. I mean, it starts with the simple stuff. You could get down there on the ground in front of our store, in the back of our store, after we clean up every morning, not a spot of litter. Try to keep our windows clean. You think, what does that have to do with it? It's people's experience. How many tourists a year come to the university? I want them to be able to walk down Elliowood Avenue and say, golly, this is a pretty street. It's not mired with trash or graffiti or whatever. And you know how that stuff is contagious. I have litter. The guy across the street has litter. Before you know it, the whole street. So,
and that's not an easy thing.
It starts with the simple stuff, but it goes beyond that. And you know how we treat people when we put on events. We try and put on first-class events. How we welcome people to our training programs, and how we treat people as our customers. So, yeah, I mean every student that comes in. Obviously, they're guests like anyone else, but I'm thinking, how do I make this a memorable experience so that in 10 years they come back to visit? They're maybe here for Foxfield or a football game, and they want to come back in the store. Maybe not to buy shoes, but just to
say hello,
show a friend, say hello. And that's been. I think the relationships, Jerry, have been the funnest part of it. And those relationships are all over the map. I struck up a friendship with a 92-year-old guy a couple weeks ago. Came in to celebrate his 92nd birthday to buy a pair of walking shoes. He walks a mile a day. Wow. Never met him before. And, that's that whole thing. I always tell the staff, find the 1 degree of separation between you and the seemingly strange in that the person is completely distant that's sitting next to you. So they're 19. How do they relate to a 92-year-old? And within just a couple of minutes, they find that connection. It's not a sales ploy as much as it is make that customer's experience positive. But how about your work experience positive? Where your shift goes quicker because you've talked.
It's fun.
You say, oh, my God, my dad went to Lehigh. You went to Lehigh, sir? What class were you in? Or my grandfather went to Lehigh. And before you know it, you've got a little connection. That person, you said, no way to have anything in common with a 90-year-old man when I'm 19. So,
let me throw this to you. I have a 9-month-old. My wife is in the business. He's 9 months old. I'm not trying to put the cart before the horse, but I would love when he's growing up to him start by taking the trash out, or him start by whatever around the shop. How about you with your kids in the business? All 3, right? Have worked
two. All the kids have worked there.
Yeah, worked in the business.
Kids. Our kids are required their 8th grade summer to start working at the store. And after they get old enough to work somewhere else, then they're required to work, but they don't have to work at Ragged Mountain. So we want them to get those skills and get engaged with an older population. Obviously, if you're 14 or 15, anybody's older than you that's shopping. So, but how do we... Jerry, it's interesting. I call all my kids that work for I just did it. I inadvertently did it, but I do it all the time. Anybody that works for me is my kid, and we tell them up front. And I know when we have this training session, they go, "Oh, here we go. It's a corporate line. We're a family here. It's give and take." But they very quickly understand that it is a family when they come in the door, and I say, "What's wrong? You don't look good." "I'm okay." "No, you're not. Come here." Tears in their eyes. "Let's go in the back office." "What's happening?" And you counsel them or whatever, and you give advice, and you say, go on home or get back out there and just wipe those tears off. But it's that tough love. And so our children have been brought up in the store, and I'd like to think many of the kids that work for us, it's their first job, so we teach them all of those things. Don't ever tell someone something you don't know is the truth. Looking people in the eyes. Don't chew gum. All of those... simple things that create. We have so many kids that have worked for us that will get back in touch with and say, Beth, I had a 52-year-old guy recently say, he worked for me all through college. He said, "I never forget the things you taught me when I was there." And I'm thinking, what did I teach you? He goes, "You and Cynthia were an example of a good marriage." I don't think of that as our role, but I realized that he was observing us. He goes, the way you talk to each other, the way you talk to customers, and how when customers that were really trouble and pain, after they would leave, you wouldn't talk about them negatively behind their back. Those types of things. They're learning all the time from your behavior. So it's that classic thing, Jerry. You hear athletes, remember the old Charles Barkley thing where he said, "I'm not a mentor.
I'm not a role model.
I'm not a role model."
Yeah.
Sorry. And as I've gotten older, I couldn't disagree more about my role in the community. And not because I say, "Oh, I'm well known." It's that I know there's a certain number of people that are related to me through my business or board or church or whatever, and I better have my act together. And I started feeling that about my children. You're going to feel it more and more, Jerry. You habits you have, you start to say things you do, the way you talk, you start to say, "Wait a second. This
We're already
kid
doing that now, and he's 9 months old. I occasionally have a bad habit of using the F word just randomly. And now it's not that. It's cheese and rice when we're frustrated. It's oh fudge.
Good for you.
And he's 9 months old. But what I've seen in 9 months is sponge.
Good for you. I mean, there's a time and a place for many of us. Our favorite, word is the F word. But there's a time and a place, and you pick and you choose. And when you're mentoring, I think, interesting enough, I'm off on a tangent now, but this is typical me. But one of the interesting things we talked earlier about the cell phone and how it's part of us. Well, we talk in our cars. Well, guess that 9-month-old is strapped in the car seat, and you and I are having a conversation on the phone, and I'm not realizing your kid's in the car seat. And we're talking about adult stuff. And I don't mean adult in a sexual sense, but
sure,
just mature stuff. hey, what do you think about that bombing in New York today? What do you think about that mass shooting? What, we're talking about stressful things like, man, oh man, I'm strapped. That kid's hearing all of that. And that's a different thing that's gone on. And I'm convinced that has to do with a lot of the stress that young people go through is they're hearing adult things when they're not. So how does that parlay into our business? Certain things we don't talk about in the store. I don't spout off religious beliefs in the store, political beliefs.
Politics, yeah.
It has gotten a little more safe to talk about Trump. I'm finding more and more people, you can at least say, can you believe what he did last night? And you're not going to offend a gigantic audience, but we don't.
Especially in Charlottesville.
I have my closest 5 or 6 friends. I've got a Jew, I've got a Catholic, I've got a gay, I've got a Republican, Democrat. I didn't go out selecting to say I want this, and that represents our business in so many ways too. And you have to have the attitude that everyone is welcome, and our kids feel that work for us, and it's part of the mantra. And it's not a sales pitch. You've got to really believe. You can't. I was telling someone this the other day. It kind of drives me crazy. This local mantra in shop locally, shop locally. No. You can't just put out a shingle and say, I'm a local business, and people come in and support you. You have to walk the walk. So what does that mean? Everything we just talked about. Fair prices, treating people well, return policies, all of that. You can't just expect. And it isn't just in this day and age with the Amazon giant overlooking us all the time. It's anytime. That should have been your mantra. So
I got to ask you about that. One thing that I try to do as an entrepreneur and businessman is try to stay ahead of conditions, stay ahead of the market, be willing to be nimble and pivot. I'm seeing you guys do that. The challenge of the internet and a brick and mortar. How do you combat that as a businessman and entrepreneur?
Yeah, it's a real question, a real issue. First off, never stand back, never sit on your laurels. I think some businesses that have gone by the wayside thought that this either wasn't a real thing that was happening or felt like them just being local or them just doing what they've done in the past was enough. It's not. This is where having young kids around you really helps, Jerry.
Because your social media game is on fire.
Well, it isn't that we work crazy hard on it, but we try and do the right things. It's a Jim Ryan type mantra. I mean, we've been doing social media long before Jim came here, but Jim has the same feelings. Jim has this tremendous social media guy, Matt Weber. He'd be a fun one to get on sometime. He is one of the nicest people I've ever met. He came down from Harvard with Jim. Jim brought him down here. And it helps to have somebody that's in your ear that's constantly saying, it's not just Jim wanting to be positive, but him also. And that's our mantra with our social media. Magnify community, pat people on the backs, and every once in a while slip in a blatant, like we're having a sale or we have a new product, but try and do that balance.
I think what it is and Judah, who's been with me for 6 years, is that for me. I think it's give more than you take. Provide value, more value than you receive. And that's what we're trying to do with this that's our whole mission. And that's what you have done so well.
We'll go back to what I said earlier. What motivated you to begin with? What's the DNA? And if the DNA is let's make it a better community, you probably have a better chance. So it's, I give talks quite often to groups about leadership, and sometimes it's student groups, sometimes it's college kids. And it's one of my 10 tips, at least once a day. Maybe it's driving home at night in the car. Maybe it's just before you hit your head hits the pillow at night. Maybe it's you're out for a run or a walk. But am I giving more than I'm taking? And if the answer is no, I'm taking more than I'm giving, again, try and recorrect that. It's not hard. It's not hard to do. But we're not naive. The landscape has changed dramatically. We've had to change pricing over the years. We've had to work harder. We do free delivery. We do have an online presence, but I don't want that online presence to ever become our sole presence, because then
you're a commodity.
I'm up against Zappos and Amazon. I can't compete. But give people that opportunity, because so often I'll hear people say, I'd like to come down, but it's not convenient. Well, I can't just say, well, I told you the corner's a great place to come visit. But let us bring the shoes to you. We do it all the time. Awesome. We do at least one a day or one every other day to house to house. At first, people were, I don't want to bother you. We're like, no, you bothering us is keeping us in business. We're happy to do it. Shipping things out and giving people a break. School teachers, all kinds of fellow business owners, give them a discount because the internet does. And so there's just figuring out ways. But the biggest thing of all, and this has been the cool part of the average age of our customer keeps getting older. So it's right around 50 now. And so many of them say, this place reminds me of the old days. Now, young people aren't going to necessarily say that because their recollection of retail is what it's been over the last 10, 15 years, which is not as service-oriented. But create an experience that can't be recreated on the internet. And what is that? A lot of it's hands-on, doing extra things for people. We cut up inserts and we, fiddle with shoes and you give training tips all the time. And I gave a woman a sitting clinic this morning. She said, "What do you mean about sitting posture? Isn't all sitting the same?" I said, "No, that's why your back's hurting." So stuff like that.
A perfect example of this is when you go to Ragged Mountain Running Shop, they put you in the shoes and they check your gait. You're not getting that from the internet. They make sure the shoes are right for you.
They might figure out how to do it someday, but who knows? But you can't get that live. And as much as we all love the convenience and the speed and the coolness of the social media and the internet, we still do have a part of our mantra that we want human contact. Somebody was saying the other day, there's a psychologist over at the university, that there's studies now about we don't touch each other anymore. It's gone. So shaking hands is becoming less and less because so much business interaction is done on the internet. Patting someone on the back, that human touch. And they were saying how far, like yesterday, I was having this frustrating experience with this one customer. And the store was really busy, and so I was helping a bunch of people at once. And there was a nurse, a UVA nurse there, and she goes, "Sit," she whispered to me, "come here, sit down." And then she began, I don't know what she was doing with my back, but it was some kind of massage of some sort. Completely relaxed me. And then she goes, "Take 6 long, deep breaths." But that physical touching, and we do that. I touch most of my customers. And how do I touch them? Up at the counter. And this is not some kind of, again, marketing play. Tap them on the back. "Thanks for coming in." That you can't do on the internet.
No.
So
It's beautiful. Couple things. And we have Chris Turner saying, this message is pretty frequent here that we're getting. "Mark, you're a pillar. I agree with Jerry. We would love to see you involved in Charlottesville to help get us out of this mess." We'll get to that in a moment. I want to talk about the climate in Charlottesville momentarily. Before we do, my neighbor's Nicole Lee, who I believe is your, not student, but a member on your team. You're her coach.
She is. She's one of my athletes, like a Jim Ryan. Yeah. Treat her the same way as the president of the university.
She speaks so highly of you. Nicole Lee, my neighbor. And where I'm going with this is, you've taken the business outside of the brick and mortar to clubs, to putting on races, to, just on days during the week, let's go for a run. How has that helped the business? Put that in perspective.
Well, again, it wasn't a marketing stance. We didn't sit down. So often people talk about your business plan and your long-term business plan. Obviously, we number of shoes we're bringing in, types of product, but that stuff came so easy because I'm, an extrovert. I love helping people. I love being out and connected with them. I like problem solving, and coaching and putting on races are problem solving. And I love the successes of people. When somebody qualifies for the Boston Marathon, or when somebody finishes their first 5K race, their first 10-mile race. But I would say it's been a big part of the success. But having said that, on any given day, what we're seeing more and more coming in are 80 and 90-year-old people who are just trying to keep themselves going, and they're not running too many long-distance races. But it's all part of the fabric of it. The quilt of Ragged Mountain's life is the Nicole Lees, and who's really fit and exercises a lot, and all of the folks I just talked about, those seniors that are just trying to get over hip surgery. So
it's truly a generational lifestyle brand that provides so much value to this community. Brandon Harrison, thank you for joining us. John Wyant, thank you for joining us on the show. You're a leader. You have a sensible perspective. You have decades of longevity in this community. I'll start with an open-ended question for you. 2019, the climate in Charlottesville. We have affordable housing issues. We have attrition on our police force. We have roads that people are asking to rebrand and statues to move and parks to change, and a lot going on in Charlottesville. Have you seen Charlottesville like this ever before?
I've had moments, I must say, that maybe not quite. I mean, what happened, the last summer 2017, and again 2018, obviously not quite to that extent. That's extraordinary. That's historical, and not in a good sense. But I'm just I love this town. And I love the history of this town. I love sitting with someone who says, I grew up here and I'm 78 years old. Tell me what it was like. Tell me what the town was like. Tell me some of your favorite memories. And I'm just a huge believer in crises define a community, and crises lead to good things. And the players in this town, the people, the heart and soul, they're the same. And it's just a matter of getting the right leaders in place to motivate that spirit again, get us going. And I feel like we are. I think 2019 is going to be a great year. And with folks like Jim Ryan, who it's contagious. If Jim spent his entire day ripping people and talking about how bad the town is, and okay, right now you and I could find 5 or 6 things to harp on that aren't right.
But that's not what we're doing.
We're not doing.
Right.
And Jim's the same way. And you're going to see this happening. It's going to be spreading. And I think believing in people and believing in that essence that we're, at our core, pretty much everybody in this town wants to make this a better place. Some of the things that trouble me, and Jerry, you know about this because you just finished telling me before we came on air about the power of social media, the power of the phone. I think certain things should be talked about publicly and should be out there.
For example?
I think when there's issues that need to be public, or issues that are of national significance, like what happened on 2017, we should be talking about publicly. But how we resolve that among leaders. So it should, if you're disagreeing, the disagreeing should be done respectfully. And if it's not done respectfully, it should be done privately then. So, example, if you and I are on a board together, and I'm chairing the board, and you think that the way I'm chairing the board is just ridiculous. You think my leadership tactics are bad. Now, obviously, if I'm approachable enough, but if you're on a board, you are obligated as a board person to speak up for the goodness of that organization. Mm-hmm. So our organization is the city or the county, if you think globally.
Sure.
But if I'm sitting on the Shelter for Help and Emergency Board, and we're having a problem, we keep that problem in-house. Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that we keep something secret that's unethical, but I always would say on our boards, how is this going to serve the people we're serving if we air our dirty laundry out publicly? Jerry, I don't like you. You don't like me. I would like us to get to a point where we feel like all of the leaders in our community can agree to disagree and do it in a respectful manner.
I think that's so well said.
And I think that's been the most troubling thing to me. I'm surprised so often by stuff that's put out on social media when somebody's angry because everyone's reading it, and it doesn't instill a sense of confidence, and it causes water cooler chatter. So I'm always trying to spin that water cooler chatter. I like the mayor. I like this person. I like that person. I want to feel good about them. They're my representative. I don't want to tear them down.
Sure.
So I'm not saying let them run ramshot over the community, but if they have a problem, I would rather they fought about it privately, and then we're able to put a face on that made us feel.
But that's not happening, unfortunately.
But it will. It's going to come. It will, and I think it's evolving. I do think it's coming, and I'm not saying I could do a better job.
Right.
Oh my gosh! I mean the challenges we have as a community. Thank you, Mayor Walker, and thank you, City Council, and thank you, Board of Supervisors, and Diantha McKeel, and all of the, Juan Way, the City School Board Chair. Thank you, but I feel like Jim Ryan will be a good example for people to say, do you not think on any given day UVA's got some problems behind the scenes, but are we obligated to hear about it? Not necessarily. So I can think of a not-for-profit years ago. We had Crisis, mm-hmm. and I was chairing the board, and we were in trouble, this mm-hmm. not-for-profit. And I remember we were fighting, and it wasn't a problem with necessarily the board. It was a crisis we're facing. We're just disagreeing on how to face it. So we had obviously a not-for-profit board. You have people you're serving. So this happened to be kids. So as the first guy got up from the board meeting, because it was adjourned, and he went to the door, I said, "Stop. Turn around, everyone. Remember, what went on here, let's keep it here. When we go out that door, everything's great. You talk to a friend."
You're saying perception is reality in a lot of ways.
So again, it's not, that wasn't really anyone's business at given moment, because we were fighting our way through a problem. We were going to resolve that problem. And then maybe later on you talk about what we went through. But how was that going to serve? Okay, so the word gets out that we're in trouble. We're not getting along. We have financial issues. People stop giving. They stop donating. Nobody wants to donate to a ship that's, starting to, sink. So how do you do that balance? When Ragged Mountain over the years, when we've run into issues from time to time, we don't put it on social media.
Keep it in-house.
And you might say, well, everyone needs, we're in a climate today where there's a notion that everyone needs to know everything. No. Okay, you and your wife have a fight. But come on, get it on social media, because you need to be transparent, Jerry. No. That's your private time, and now if you get a divorce, which is not going to happen, then that becomes public. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And what you share about that divorce is also
your own prerogative.
Right. So,
yeah.
And you might say, well, city council is owed to be, and board of supervisors are owed, and the city school board, they have to be transparent. You're right. But when they go into a private meeting, I think stuff that goes on there, everyone comes out and saying, we're working together. We're getting there.
Let me throw this to you here. I'm choosing my words carefully here. My business is almost 11 years old, 11 years in May. We've had a lot of success. And I feel because of that success, I'm a social entrepreneur. I want to give back. We have the skill set of being good with our words, being good with people, the skill set of human connection. And I think that's a very important skill set. I feel so compelled to use these God-given abilities to make Charlottesville better. I feel tremendously compelled to potentially get involved at a civic duty standpoint to make Charlottesville better. My wife hates hearing that because she's a private person, and we have a 9-month-old. Where I'm going with this is, you have all these talents. Have you thought at all? Have you considered at all getting more involved from a civic standpoint? Is that not what you want to do?
I serve on committees and task forces, and
you're very involved. I mean, from a political standpoint.
But here I am telling someone they can do something better, but at the same time, I find my head scratching. How would I do it? How would I make this better myself? And Jerry, I've made enough mistakes over the years to fill a good doorstop size book. I'm not perfect in public. I haven't always been a perfect leader when I'm on boards, or a perfect Sunday school teacher, a perfect boss, a perfect race director. I'm making mistakes all the time too. I hope that people believe in me, that when I do make a mistake and I say I'm sorry or I'm working on correcting it, that they're still with me. And that's how I feel about our city council. I'm not going to pitch stones and say, you guys, everyone out of there, let's clean house. No, they're working hard. I just had that one thought. It's just a personal feeling about, that balance of being open, but also maybe not, having it be so apparent when people aren't getting along because you want to have faith. But no, it's a nice thought, Jerry, but no, I find that my passions and my energy maybe work to support what the city council is doing. They say we need to be good citizens, and we need to be good neighbors, and we need to be good business owners, and we need to be good families. And so I volunteered in the schools for almost 20 years, and long after my kids were in the school, I would go into the classroom and work with kids that were in trouble at school. I love those kids that were causing trouble in the classroom. Get them out of the classroom, sit with them one-on-one, find out what's going on, and that was always a turn on. No, nice thought, Jerry, but part of it is late nights.
Right.
I mean, I see what time.
Right.
And again, God bless these guys.
Right.
I do want to make sure I don't leave the impression I think things are lousy, because I think
you're not doing
it's
that.
a journey.
Yeah.
And journeys are meant, I said earlier, crises define us. And I think people say, oh, Charlottesville's a mess, and we're never going to make it back, and it's in turmoil. We got good people. and they're working in the right direction, and they believe in what they're doing. And, as long as people respect one another. So I just looking forward to the day that nationally, too, that people embrace our community and instead of us being a hashtag. I think we will be a story at some point. Maybe, of course, it's been documentaries, but a documentary
You're
about
saying the
how
comeback story?
There's comeback story. And we're not down in the toilet, and we never were down in the toilet. That was, I think, overrated, because even at its worst, we had a young woman killed. That was one of the single worst tragedies. Look at the goodness that came out of that, the people that showered that. I tried to get in the Paramount that day for that memorial service. It was, they felt packed up. That's the part that I like to magnify, is look at how we came together. And people, I think, for the most part, are inherently good, and we've got a pile of them in this town.
I totally agree. And you know what? The beautiful thing about talking with you, we've already filled an hour, and it feels like 10 minutes.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Mark Lickman, thank you for joining us. Laura Jones, thank you for joining us. Steve, I'm going to butcher your last name, and I'm sorry. Steve Bickerstaff, I believe I say it. Thank you for joining us. I'm going to close with 2 more questions.
Okay.
And I want to turn these into highlight reels. So if you could, engage with that camera.
All right.
The first one is, what has made Ragged Mountain Running and Walking Shop so successful, be able to have 37 years of success? Why have you had and enjoyed this success in our community?
I think it's twofold. It's having that the DNA to say, I want to work hard and I want to do it for the right reasons. I don't think you can go terribly wrong with that equation, with that chemistry. Having said that, there's no way we would have made it this far if it wasn't for the people in this community believing. I really believe this has been a big part of it, that they feel good investing in Ragged Mountain because they see it as an investment in their community. And I don't want to say they're smart enough or wise enough or intuitive enough, but we have a lot of people in this town that want this town to succeed. And they see a business that feels the same way. They want to support it. So we're no good without those people. And I hate to use the term customers because it starts to sound like us and them, but without those friends of Ragged Mountain, without those people that have shopped in there, we have many people, they've shopped all 37 years. We have many people that have started, they moved here 5 years ago and never shopped here before, and now shop here on a regular basis. We couldn't do it without them. So some of it's us, and some of it, I think, is the magic chemistry of this special community. And we have a lot of people in this town that want to give back. Look at all the not-for-profits we have. I think that same mentality goes towards saying, I'm going to support a business that feels right to me. It feels like this is where I want to invest my dollars.
It was a great answer. Judah, highlight clip, please, sir. Final question. We close the show the same way with everybody. How long have you been in the community?
I just passed 40 years.
So 40 years. So you have a lot of perspective here. Charlottesville, Virginia. Same question for everybody. Charlottesville, Virginia, when you first arrived, Charlottesville, Virginia today. Is it a better place? Is it a worse place? If so, why?
It's obviously a different place, but I think that heart and soul is still there. And I think the university has a lot to do with that, but I also think it's the people and the environment around us. You wake up every day, the beautiful scenery, history. So I think that is a tie that keeps us never drifting too far from the good things. I would say in a lot of ways it's better. We've got our challenges, traffic and low-income housing and those types of things, but we've got enough. We still have that same core of people. Maybe we just have a lot more of them now that want to resolve those issues. So I think it's a brighter town than it was then in a lot of ways. We're certainly more of a melting pot. I remember all the anti-Northerner comments I would get when I first moved to town. I never heard Northerner negative statements before. I lived in the North and went to school in the North, and I was like, wow. But it was just because I was different. Although I must say I don't use my horn like I used to. I would always lean on my horn. Now I'm a lot more patient, so the Southern boy in me has come out. But I think we're a more diverse community, and there were no handicap accessibility. There was no recycling. There were just so many issues in our town that we were kind of more we were behind times, we're now right there with the times, and I think that's great. So overall, we're a better place.
Great answer. Judah, rack that, please, for a highlight clip. Thank you so much. We filled an hour. It felt like 10 minutes. I appreciate you.
Thanks a bunch,
you.
Jerry.
I know your
Thanks for
time
the
is valuable.
I really, really appreciate being on a show where there's so much positivity.
The whole concept, the best of Charlottesville, Virginia, is our tagline with I Love CVille. Guys, I'm grateful for him. I'm grateful for Lloyd Snook's time. We have spent an hour and change with Mark and 90 minutes and change with Lloyd, and these are important people in our community, but they realize the importance of spotlighting Charlottesville from a positive standpoint. Next week, we are going to welcome Andre Xavier, who is a tourism expert, to talk about changing the conversation to a positive conversation in Central Virginia and Charlottesville from a national standpoint. On Tuesday, we'll welcome Michael Payne. Michael Payne is running for City Council. I'd like to get a feel for his platform, and I'd like to put him in the spotlight so you could get a feel for his platform as well. Sarah Hill Bushinsky will join us on Wednesday from Roy Wheeler Real Estate. We're efforting Dr. Wes Bellamy for Thursday here on the I Love CVille show. We close the program the same way every time. Charlottesville, Virginia, please be good to each other. We'll see you on Monday at 12:30 on the I Love CVille show. Enjoy your weekend.
It's good. Yeah. Thanks.